Assalamu alaikum and welcome to all of you. This lecture is about Michel Foucault, a 20th century French philosopher. Foucault was a committedly revolutionary figure, and his main focus was how power is exercised through institutions. Next point was the power of a modern capitalist state, how it controls the institutions through police, law courts, prisons, doctors and psychiatrists. The relationship of power, ideology and discourse in relation to modern organizational system. So his main study, his main focus was on the relationship of knowledge and power. But knowledge, it is gained, it is acquired through language. So the study of language and the establishment of a particular language is very, very important for the relationship of knowledge and power. At the age of 27 in 1953, Michel Foucault came across Nietzsche's book Untimely Meditations, particularly an essay on the uses and abuses of history for life. Nietzsche argued that how history should be read and taught. He rejected with sarcastic fury the traditional way of studying history. He further argued that the study of history should dig out the past ideas, concepts and examples which can help us to lead a better life in our own times. To look back into the past and to sort out the urgent issues of his own time. So, according to his approach, the past and the present should be linked with each other, and then in the light of that, a solution should be traced. Thus, Foucault changed the direction of his thought and became a particular kind of philosophical historian. So, how we can conclude about Michel Foucault? So, he is a historian of ideas, he is a social theorist and a literary critic. And furthermore, the relationship between power and knowledge, that was his main focus, with the addition that how power and knowledge are employed for social control through various institutions. Now, how power and knowledge, they are related with each other. Power is constituted through accepted forms of knowledge, scientific understanding and truth. Truth, a thing of this world, is produced by virtue of multiple forms and is induced through regular effects of power. A society has its regime of truth, general politics of truth through the types of discourse, and this discourse functions as truth. So, a society, a group in a society, it develops a particular discourse, and that discourse then function as truth, and that truth is established through the institutions, through power and through force. Now, what is discourse? Discourse refers to ways of constituting knowledge. It means when a discourse is developed, then it is converted, it is changed into knowledge, and together with the social practices, it forms a subjectivity and power and the relationship between subjectivity and power. Discourses define the boundaries of what can be thought of and communicated at a time in a social setup or a society. Governmentality. Discourses and other practices in power regulation, such as practices of government and the government of self, shape the subjectivity of the people, and in Foucauldian terms, they shape the relationship of individuals and thus affect the mobilization potential of social movements. Foucault makes an analysis of the emergence of the modern institutions such as prisons, hospitals, and schools that have played a role in controlling and monitoring the social population. There is another side to the Enlightenment ideas about individual liberty, and that is discipline and surveillance. So, how discipline is established or organized through various institutions, this is the main focus of Michel Foucault. Foucault challenges the ideas that power is wielded by people or groups by way of episodic or sovereign acts of domination. According to his theory, power is everywhere and comes from everywhere, so in this sense it is neither an agency nor a structure. Rather, power is a kind of metaphor or a regime of truth that pervades in society and is in a constant flux and negotiation. As far as his major works or contribution are concerned, so his first book, Madness and Civilization, that was published in 1961, The Birth of the Clinic, 1963, The Order of the Things, 1966, The Archaeology of Knowledge, 1969, Discipline and Punish, 1975, The History of Sexuality. It has several volumes, so it is a work which was completed in various forms of volumes from 1976 up to 1984, and then The Birth of Biopolitics, that was written in 1979. In Madness and Civilization, he argues that things way back in the Renaissance were actually far better for the insane than they had subsequently become. In the Renaissance, he argued that the mad or the insane peoples were felt to be different rather than crazy. The people are treated with mental illnesses in so much more of a humane way than ever did in the past. So, the insane peoples, they are put in hospitals, give them drugs and get them looked after, and this is giving the drugs, putting the people into hospitals and looking after by the doctors or by the by the specialized peoples. This is the point of Michel Foucault, that the insane or the mental ill people, they should not be treated differently, rather they should be considered as a part of society. Foucault's historical researches showed him that in the mid-17th century, a new attitude was introduced for the mentally ill people. They were allowed to live alongside the sane. That was before the 17th century. However, after the 17th century, the things, they are changed. They were taken away from their families, that is, the insane or the mentally ill people, and locked up in asylums and seen as people one should try to cure rather than tolerate for just being different. So those peoples who behave differently, they were put into hospitals or they were kept alone away from the normal people, and according to Michel Foucault, they should not be treated like this way, rather they should remain with the normal people in the society. The birth of the clinic. In this book, he argues that medicine had become more humane with time, better drugs and treatments. However, this is not a remedy, this is not a solution. In the 18th century, the professional doctor was born, that is, the profession of medicine, it came into being, and that doctor was, according to Michel Foucault, a sinister figure who would look at the patient always with a medical gaze. This is a special word coined by Michel Foucault, that a doctor used to see a patient with a medical gaze, that is, to treat the patient differently from medical viewpoint. A dehumanizing attitude and look a patient just as a set of organs, not a person. So the focus of a doctor was just on a particular organ of a person, not consider him as an individual. A merely malfunctioning kidney or liver, so that liver, that kidney or any part of body, it was considered separately, not as a part, as a whole of a person. And this is the point of Michel Foucault, that it should not be like this. A person, a patient should be considered as a living being and should be treated like a living person. The Archaeology of Knowledge. This is actually a book which tells us the relationship of discourse, ideology, language, knowledge and power. And a statement is the rules which render an expression, a phrase, a proposition or a speech act discursively meaningful. It means every phrase, every speech act or a combination of words, it has a separate meaning, and that meaning is then considered as a part of knowledge, and that knowledge is then exploited, is used for the exploitation or for the exercising the execution of power. The systems of thought and knowledge are governed by rules beyond those of grammar and logic. So grammar and logic, they are part of the language, but there are certain other factors which can also be considered, which can operate beneath the consciousness of individual subjects, a system of conceptual possibilities that determines the boundaries of thought and language use in a given domain and period, that is, in a particular context. And this is the point which is exploited by, which is considered, which is implied by Edward Said, and particularly in his book The Word, the Text and the Critic, written in 1985, he has discussed the relationship between the text and the context, and he put emphasis on the meaning, the interpretations of context. So, the study of text and context, it's very important, and from the study of text and context then we can extract a discourse, we can develop a discourse. The contemporary study of history of ideas ultimately depends on continuities that break down under close inspection. The history of ideas mark points of discontinuity between broadly defined modes of knowledge, but the assumption that those modes exist as whole fails to do justice to the complexities of discourse. So, a discourse should be considered in a particular context, and then we can extract the meaning from it. Discourses emerge and transform according to a vast and complex set of discursive and institutional relationships, which are defined as much by breaks and ruptures by unified themes. Discourse, as a way of speaking, is a set of things said in their emergences and transformations without any speculation about the overall collective meaning of statements. Now, this is another book written in 1975, Discipline and Punish, and actually this is related with the society or with the social developments. This book is about the state punishment. The prison and punishing system of the modern world is so much more humane than it was in the days when people were hung in public squares, in open, in front of the crowds or the peoples. Power now looks kind, but it is not like it. In the past, it clearly wasn't kind and therefore could encourage open rebellion and protest. So, according to Michel Foucault, in the past, the revolution, they used to occur, the rebellions, and it was that these rebellions, they were the results of the open punishment of the individuals or the peoples. However, in the modern system, the people are put into prisons as a punishment. In the past, a convict's body could become focus of sympathy and admiration, and the executioner rather than the convict could become the focus of shame. So, the person who used to be punished, he would be appreciated by the people, and the executioner, he used to be blamed or criticized. Public executions often led to riots in support of the prisoner. With the invention of the modern prison, everything happened in private behind locked gates. One could no longer see and therefore resist state power. That is what made the modern system of punishment so barbaric and primitive. Panoptican. This is actually a particular kind of structure, an architectural design put forth by Jeremy Bentham in the mid 19th century for prisons, insane asylums, schools, hospitals and factories. And this can be compared with the modern time CCTV cameras, where we can observe the people who are moving inside or outside a building or a particular structure. In the past, violent methods, tortures and cruel methods were employed in the dungeons or in the prisons to the prisoners around the world. The progressive modern democratic states need a different sort of system to regulate its citizens. It means more reforms are needed for the citizens, and when they are put into various institutions just like prisons, hospitals, educational institutions and factories. The Panoptican offered a powerful and sophisticated internalized force through the constant observation of prisoners, each separated from the others, allowing no interaction and no communication. Thus, modern structure would allow guards to see inside each cell from their point in a high central tower, unseen by the prisoners. Constant observation acts as a control mechanism, and this is the point of criticism by Michel Foucault. Discipline, a guarantee system of rights that is established by certain principle and is supported by some mechanisms. Now, as a conclusion, we can say that Foucault's concept of power is so elusive and removed from agency or structure that there seems to be little scope for practical action. However, he has been hugely influential in pointing to the ways that norms can be so embedded as to be beyond our perception. Foucault's work is transdisciplinary in nature, ranging across the concerns of the disciplines of history, sociology, psychology and philosophy. His main focus is on historical account of the promotion of philosophical ideas. There are shifts in our understanding from one point to another which separated our thinking in the modern age. This was just a slight introduction about Michel Foucault and his works. Now, his works can be considered separately for a detailed studies, and in the coming lectures we will take them one by one and then we will compare his ideas, his conclusions, his findings with the present day developments, and then we will take every aspect of his theory or his philosophy separately in details. Thank you very much for your kind attention.